All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us here today for our information session on peer learning groups, your questions answered. A bit of housekeeping as we get started. Please do feel free to use the Q&A function to ask your questions, any questions that you may have during today's session. We've reserved time at the end to go over them, and we'll be monitoring those throughout today's session. So I see it already, we have the chat going for saying hello, greeting one another, being connected, but the Q&A function is really going to be the best place for you to share any questions that you have. We are recording today's session. So for anyone who is registered to participate, you will receive the recording as well as a PDF of the slides following today's session. You should also be able to view closed captions using the caption setting. We are conducting today's session in English, but closed captions are available for you if that helps your understanding. Excited for everyone to be here. I'm seeing people joining from Pakistan, Turkey, Morocco, Switzerland, the United States, Germany, Kenya, Canada, and I'm sure many other places. So with that, let's get started. First, I would love to introduce myself as well as some colleagues who are here with us today. My name is Caitlin Casey. I sit in the Global Compacts office in New York, where I work as the Senior Manager on Program Delivery. And I'm joined today by three colleagues, Caitlin Kennedy, who also works with me on peer learning groups and other forms of our program portfolio, as well as Fernando Castellanos, who's the head of climate and environment, and Lina Al-Kadumi, who's our manager for our gender equality team. Thanks so much to the three of you for joining us. And with that, we can go over today's agenda. We have an hour booked for this call today. That time is really dependent on, we view it as your time. So we're here to answer your questions. We will end early if time allows. We have a very short introduction to peer learning groups overall to start us off today, as well as then a quick overview of the 4 peer learning groups that's offered and what you can expect to discuss within each of the 4 themes this year. We then also have received a number of questions from participants already. So we have some idea of what some of the questions are that may be at the top of your mind. We'll cover those and before we open it up more broadly to the group. So with that, I invite you again, just as that last reminder, as I'm going through, as we're speaking, please do feel free to use that Q&A function. We'll be monitoring it and we will come to that Q&A there at the end. So with that, I'm so excited, really, I can't say enough, to be having this first information session today. Offering peer learning groups has been an goal for the Global Compact for some time. A number of our local networks have been doing this already in their countries for their participants, but it's not previously been an offering that we've had at the global level. And I think that was really a gap for us. What we know is that companies all over the world are grappling with the complex challenges that you're facing with an ever-changing sustainability landscape under mounting pressure from consumers, civil society, other stakeholders. And we've known that there's a really great opportunity for us to connect sustainability professionals, each of whom are grappling with similar challenges, to provide a safe space to share experiences, gain new insights, hopefully learn from one another, while pushing for the broader sustainability progress that is so important to all of us. Peer learning groups are really expected to offer that safe space for you to share your best practices and hopefully find solutions inspired by the work of others. Really importantly, these are going to be run with our local networks, so you will be in a community of peers within your countries. It's a key design feature. So what can you experience, or what can you expect to gain? What we want to be sure that we're able to offer is really practical conversations that are grounded in the types of challenges that we hear from companies on every day, on the key topics that are really at the core of what the Global Compact is offering. We do want to be sure that we're trying to also introduce you to new trends, new ideas from around the world, even as you are connecting with peers within your country. It is really important to us that we feel that you feel that you're in a safe space. So sessions will be conducted under Chatham House rules with confidentiality, not recorded, but really offering a judgment-free space for you to connect and speak openly with others working in sustainability. And we hope that as an outcome, you not only get new knowledge and new insights, but also grow your professional network and meet others to support you in your work going forward. With that as a sort of basis, we do want to introduce you to our 4 peer learning groups that we're offering this year. We'll talk a little bit about what the structure is that you can expect, but based on that earlier conversation about what the themes are and how we've thought about them, we wanted to just give you a quick sense right away about what you can expect to be talking about. So this is where I'll soon turn it over to my colleagues, but I'll start first. What we're going to do is give you sort of a pitch and a really quick overview of what's going to be happening in each of the 4 peer learning groups this year. So I'll talk about the SMEs, Fernando will talk about climate, Lena on labor, Caitlin on labor and human rights, and Lena on gender equality, just to give you a sense. So I'll start now with an overview of our SME focused peer learning group. This is one that we're so excited about. A big portion of the Global Compact community is SMEs, and it's if you've had the chance to read our 2021 to 2023 strategy, you'll see that SMEs are a really important part of delivering on what it is that we hope the Global Compact can achieve. So the SME Peer Learning Group is one of our first programmatic opportunities that specifically targets our SME community and their particular needs around sustainability. What we mean here is that we recognize that some SMEs may be resource constrained, may be trying to figure out how to advance in their sustainability journey, given unique circumstances of their size, their resource availability, and understanding where they fit within the sustainability landscape. So the point of this peer learning group really is to bring together SME participants to have a chance to discuss their unique challenges that they face across industries and sectors, but based on their size. So this peer learning group alone will have 6 sessions throughout the course of this year, focusing on the 4 key areas of the Global Compact's 10 principles. So what we'll do first is talk about the business case for sustainability. This is the most common thing that we're hearing from SMEs. Maybe you as a sustainability manager or an individual within a company are really trying to push forward a sustainability agenda and struggling to make inroads on what the business case is, either internally or with stakeholders. So we'll focus our first session on understanding that business case and the value of sustainability. From there, we'll turn to the 4 principal areas and have an opportunity for conversations about what it means to implement those principles within the 10 principles of the Global Compact in a very practical way. So the first will focus on human rights, the second on labor rights, then the environment principles with a particular focus also on climate, and finally, our 10th principle on anti-corruption. The 6th session is extremely practical. It's focused on your sustainability action plan. What are the next steps for you to bring the principles to life and take this forward within your company, getting feedback on what that action plan should look like. So we hope that this SME peer learning group is extremely practical, very oriented on bringing the 10 principles to life, connected into the COP as a result, and hopefully very action oriented towards next steps. With that, Fernando, I'll turn it over to you for a quick pitch on climate.
Thank you, Caitlin. Good morning, everyone. So our peer learning groups on climate will have these 4 key topics in every business's climate action plans. We'll start off with mitigation, which, as you know, it's a critical aspect for every businesses, as businesses need to lead the way in setting targets and in their decarbonization if we want to contribute to achieving the 1.5 degree goal set in the Paris Agreement. In this peer learning group, we'll be looking at questions in the barriers and challenges that businesses that you've been facing when it comes to setting science-based targets, or the challenges in working towards the achievement of these targets. Since it's a really core component for every businesses as we set to look to a net zero world by the middle of this century. Next, we'll be looking into the just transition component, which is a social aspect that it's quite critical. Everything we do around climate change is about people, essentially, and in our in every company's pathway towards net zero, changes will happen, jobs will be lost, and jobs will be gained, and those new green jobs are not always in the same places or the same in similar industries. So we're looking to the challenges that companies are having in the just transition, how a company can contribute to social inclusion, decent work, and the overall well-being of communities. The next session within the climate peer learning groups is on adaptation. A few years ago, I spoke of adaptation as kind of something in the distant future. The less we mitigate, the more we adapt. The reality now is that climate change is no longer something distant, but it's something that is already affecting businesses and communities now. So we'll look into strategies within businesses to adapt to climate change. What are they working on to address the already extreme weather events that we see happening around the world, and how resilience is being built within companies and the communities in which each company operates on. And finally, we'll finish with the climate action in the supply chain, looking at what we would refer to as the scope 3 of emissions, everything down the supply chain, and we've seen challenges in the past few years with COVID, extreme weather events, the war in Ukraine. So we've seen these disruptions kind of sort of exacerbating one another, and we'll look at questions about what was the biggest sort of disruptions in the supply chains of each of your companies, what sort of solutions you've come up with to deal with these disruptions, to protect from future disruptions, and what have been the main challenges in working with providers and suppliers all along the value chain, and the challenges faced by everyone in just not just focused within one's own core businesses, but along the entire supply chain. So these are the four topics within the climate peer learning groups, and we hope that people will be engaged, and we look forward to those discussions.
Thank you so much, Fernando. I think that it goes really without saying how critical the climate agenda is for the world as well as for the Global Compact. And we're looking at so really an exciting opportunity to connect participants to these key topics within the agenda. Caitlin, very grateful if you can speak on behalf of our labor and human rights teams on that peer learning group.
Yes, thank you, Caitlin. So yeah, the topic of labor and human rights is a really pressing issue for companies right now, and it's also a very timely topic given the changes in legislation that are being discussed all around the world. So the topics that you see here are aligned with our Global Compact labor principles on freedom of association, elimination of forced and compulsive labor, the abolition of child labor, and elimination of discrimination in the workplace. So you'll be able to continue building on those key principles in your business. And these topics are also ones that, through our work with companies on labor and human rights, have been identified as key issues to drive change across your operations and supply chains and really uphold labor rights and decent work in your business. These are also topics where we already offer a rich database of resources from the Global Compact, including reporting materials, case examples, and particularly our Business and Human Rights Navigator, which speaks to each of these issues here and their due diligence considerations. So this peer learning group is really a great opportunity for companies to dive deeper into each of these issues and see how companies are handling these topics in their company or in their country as they are evolving in your local context.
Thank you, Caitlin. I just shared into the chat the link to the Business and Human Rights Navigator. It includes 10 really key themes, 4 of which are these ones that we'll focus on for this year's peer learning group. So if you want to take a look at some of the resources, case examples, and key themes to get more of a sense of it, you can find it at that link for the Business and Human Rights Navigator. Lena, over to you to give us a sense of the Gender Equality Peer Learning Group. Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin. Very nice to be here today and to speak with everyone and share a little bit about our upcoming peer learning groups on gender equality. So just to give you a little bit of a appetizer on what will be covered. So for the women in leadership topic, we talk about how only 5% of companies globally have a female CEO and what that means for the business community. So, put simply, women's rights are human rights, and businesses have the responsibility to protect them and respect them, obviously. But also focusing on women's leadership and building inclusive workplaces can help your bottom line. For example, achieving 30% female representation on corporate boards could add 6 percentage points to net margins. So during that peer learning group, we're going to be asking questions like, what is the current gender balance on your company's board and top management teams? And what structural barriers do you believe exist in your organization that could explain the gender gap in leadership positions? The next topic, male allyship, is our new topic at UN Global Compact this year, where we talk about how men play a crucial role in supporting women's equality across the private sector to create the world we want. So this peer learning group is an opportunity to learn how men can support women in realizing their professional potential by dismantling harmful structural inequalities and influencing a positive culture shift throughout the organization and beyond. During this peer learning group, we're going to be asking, if you're a male leader, how can or how have you taken a more proactive role to advance gender equality across your company through your own personal leadership? And if you're a non-male leader, what steps would you like to see male colleagues take? For example, how can we counteract sexist comments and actions in the workplace and be a driver of this culture shift that so needs to take place? The third session is on equal pay. And in case you didn't know, women only make 77 cents to every dollar earned by men globally, and the number varies, and the gap often gets bigger across the world. So as a result, there's a lifetime of income inequality between men and women, and more women are struggling to make ends meet and retiring into poverty. Women and men obviously have the right to receive equal remuneration for work of equal value, which means ensuring that women and men working in identical or in similar jobs receive the same pay. So some of the questions that we'll be exploring is, has your company established any policies, practices, or programs to ensure equal pay? How does this extend to your supply chain practices? Does your company have an effective tracking system, for example, to place in place to review whether your efforts to ensure equal pay is effective over time? And is there legislation in your country to address the gender pay gap? Finally, the last topic is another new topic that we're covering over the last year at the Global Compact, and it's on gender responsive procurement. So we're covering this because what we're seeing, the data is pointing to the fact that 1 in 3 businesses globally are owned by a woman, yet less than 1% of procurement contracts are awarded to these women-owned businesses. We see this as a missed opportunity for business to diversify their supply chain while also contributing to more inclusive economic growth by creating social and economic through businesses' buying power. Businesses large and small procure from other businesses. So this practice does apply to SMEs and multinationals alike. So the business case for gender responsive procurement is clear. And the way we define gender responsive procurement is about companies leveraging their purchasing policies and practices to promote gender equality and support social and economic progress through gender responsive measures at all stages and tiers of procurement and supply chain. So some of the questions that we'll be exploring in this session is, does your company apply a gender lens to your existing supplier codes of conduct? Is the procurement decision-making team gender balanced? And what is the ongoing relationship like with suppliers today? So let me know if you have any additional questions, and I look forward to hosting you in the peer learning groups in the future.
Thank you so much, Lena. As well as Fernando, Caitlin, for giving us this overview. I'm seeing some questions come in the Q&A about where you can participate, who's offering what. We do have a quick overview slide to give you a sense of which local networks are offering which of the peer learning groups. Some are, selecting the ones that they think are the most relevant to their local markets or that complement their existing programmatic offerings. So on this slide, we will not go through it. We'll just flash it here for you to take a look and see. Now, one question that I did see come in the Q&A that was a really helpful one. Someone asked, they're a participant of a company headquartered in one country. Are they obligated to participate only in a peer learning group in that country, or can they join a peer learning group offered by a different local network? In this case, the simplest thing to say is that you most likely, in almost every case, will need to become a member of that local network where you want to participate before you're able to join a peer learning group. So if you are interested in this case of joining a peer learning group in Germany or Switzerland, I apologize that I forget which order it is, I would recommend reaching out to that local network and seeing what their requirements are to participate in local programming. But in most cases, the local network will ask companies to be a local participant before taking part in programming. With that, Caitlin, let's move forward to some of our frequently asked questions. I think what we can do, you are very well positioned to be responding to these. So I will ask you them and then would love to hear from you what the responses are. So what do we have coming up? First question, we hear it all the time. Who within the company should be the one participating in these peer learning groups? And then what is the time commitment expected of them while they're taking part?
Thank you, Caitlin. Yes, so to start off with the eligibility. So who's eligible to join a peer learning group? As Caitlin just mentioned, we would hope that you're a participant of the Global Compact and also currently engaged with the Global Compact local network. We would also ask that you're able to nominate 1 to 2 representatives who can speak to your organization's work on the topic of the peer learning group that you're participating in. And be able to really be active in those discussions and maybe take back some of the takeaways that you've learned and implement them in your company. If you are already a participant in the Global Compact, there is no additional cost to you to participate in these peer learning groups. But the signups are on a first come, first served basis. The networks will be capping those groups at a certain level to make sure that the conversations are as fruitful as possible. So do get your applications in on the sooner side if you're interested. So then who should participate? Companies of all sizes and levels of advancement in your sustainability journey on these topics are welcome to join. All levels are helpful in the conversation. We just ask that you are interested in really being part of this community, and you can also commit to joining all of the sessions to make sure we really grow that community aspect. On that same page, that you should be willing to candidly share what you've been working on, and as well as, being willing to learn and engage with your peers. And you are able as a company to join multiple tracks. If this makes sense for your company and you have representatives who can join, you'll just need to apply to each track individually. So the time commitment of peer learning groups is those 4 to 6 90-minute sessions over the course of 2023. You should be able to be actively a part of those 90-minute sessions, hopefully fully plugged into those and the conversation. And there will be up to about an hour of preparation in advance of each session. We'll share some resources and reflection questions in advance that can prepare you to have as fruitful a conversation as possible.
One question came in over the chat that I think could be helpful to just address right here, Caitlin. Someone asked, is it possible to sort of jump in between different peer learning groups, or is it just the one? What would you say to that?
I would say if you join a peer learning group, you should be committed to that peer learning group and all 4 to 6 sessions. You could do multiple peer learning groups if you're willing to commit fully to both of those. The expectation would be that you join all sessions and engage fully in that one group.
And then another question related to this, someone saying they've already signed up for one peer learning group. How can they register with a local network? How can they register for a different one? In that case, it's very simple. You'll just complete the form, this exact same sign up form. But instead of selecting, in this case, gender equality, you would select climate and go from there. Let's see, what's the next one? So can you tell us a bit more, Caitlin, about how these sessions are structured?
Yes, so as we mentioned, there are 4 to 6 live 90-minute sessions. These will take place throughout the year of 2023, and those specific dates will be organized by your network. Before each of these sessions, you'll receive some curated resources to prepare and reflect on. And then during the sessions themselves, we'll start off with some different types of group exercises, maybe case studies to get the ideas flowing. Think a little bit about the complexities of each topic. And then, of course, importantly, there'll be time in each session to have that discussion with your peers. These will be facilitated by your local networks, giving you time to really reflect on your challenges and opportunities and ideas on the topic. Oh, you're muted, Caitlin.
Thank you for highlighting. We've gotten the question, are these live? Are they virtual? Are they in person? So just to emphasize, as Caitlin said, in the vast majority of countries, our expectation is that these will be run virtually. So that's sort of the easiest thing to say. There are certainly in some countries, depending on local COVID context and ease of travel, things like that. Some networks may be running one or more of these in person, but the vast majority will be virtual. And so I think that's a safe assumption.
Great. Next question.
The next question, and I love this one, working on our program delivery side, is how do our peer learning groups really connect into our other Global Compact programmatic offerings? How do they connect? How can you sort of make the most of the full programmatic suite?
Yes, and that's a great consideration. So we see peer learning groups as really a new way to engage with the Global Compact and with other Global Compact companies. This is an area where participants have been looking to expand the opportunities, really wanting to find that safe space for conversation. So the focus here is really on that community building aspect and collective problem solving, working together on these really topical issues. So you can really dive into peer learning groups no matter where you are with your journey in sustainability and also with the Global Compact engagement. So whether you have already participated in an accelerator or a Think Lab, or maybe you've taken some academy courses, you're still very welcome to join the peer learning groups. And similarly, if you have already or if you have not yet participated in one of these, this can be a great jumping in point. All levels are really welcome and can really make for a great conversation. We do want to point out also that throughout the course of peer learning groups and even now as a participant, you do have access to the Global Compact Academy platform. So there are courses there where you can also enrich your understanding on these topics before, during, and after. So if you are already a participant and you have questions about getting access to that, let us know and we can get you started.
Thank you so much, Caitlin. So, yeah, we have a number of really great questions coming in. If you want to move just forward to that place. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot one more. What is the timeline for this? And included in that, we're getting some questions in the Q&A. If we can add on what the timeline is for confirmation, hearing back for people that have already applied.
Perfect. That's great. So so registration is already open. Love hearing that people have already applied. That's great. From the global perspective, so for many of the countries, that registration will end on 15th of February. This exact date may vary by your country, depending on the local context and what's happening in your exact network. But you can register at the link below here and get more information. So then the onboarding process. So once you've already applied, your local network will reach out to you with onboarding information, as well as some materials for your first session. If you've already applied, that's great. I think probably the next couple of weeks, you'll start hearing from networks about that approval and next steps. So give it a little bit more time as we get closer to the end of registration, but we will definitely be reaching out soon. And then once that onboarding process has concluded, as we mentioned, those sessions will take place over the course of 2023, some beginning as early as March, but your network will share those exact dates with you.
Thank you very much. I think I also shared in this link to the website where you can find out more in the chat. So that's there, easily available as a click. And of course, if you Google Global Compact Peer Learning Groups, I saw that it is the top hit also. So easy ways to find it. So then just as a reminder, and I am seeing some great questions coming in clarifying this, this as well. But let's revisit now, Caitlin, which local networks are running the peer learning groups this year. We'll just flash that up. A couple of questions that I'm seeing. One that I just saw, for example, is if my country is not offering this peer learning group this year, is there still a way to participate in these? It's a really great question. This is our first year offering the peer learning groups at this global level and with this global coordination. So the simplest answer is no, not at this time. please do feel free, of course, to let your local network know that this would be something that you'd be interested in if it were to be offered. And we're going to, on our side, continue to be working on different opportunities for regional and global peer learning, including throughout the course of this year over our academy. What I wanted to emphasize, though, is that, and this goes to Caitlin's earlier point on how this fits in with our other Global Compact programming, there are a number of other programming opportunities on, for example, on those themes available. So we're really excited. We have some new content specifically targeting SMEs that is going to be going live on our academy in the coming months. For example, we in February, we'll be launching the 3rd round of our Climate Ambition Accelerator, for example. Those are other types of programmatic offerings available to participants anywhere in the world, if you don't see a peer learning group in your country at this time. Another one connected to this that I wanted to bring up, Andrea asked, are the sessions available only in English or in different languages? This is a really great question. One of the major benefits of doing peer learning groups through our local networks is that they can be offered in your local language. So you can expect that the Latin American, Caribbean one will be led in Spanish, same with the one from Spain. And in some cases, the network may choose to present the materials in English, but the discussions in local languages, things like that. But that really is the key value in running these through the local networks, is that you can have access to the conversations in local languages. I'm seeing again, just to emphasize, if you're interested in participating in a peer learning group offered by a local network other than the one you currently are a member of, please do feel free to reach out to that local network and explore the potential of participating. All right, so now I'm looking through trying to assess some of the questions coming in. So please, yes, it's a little bit easier for me to manage the Q&A if you use the Q&A instead of the chat. So I'm viewing also the chat, but just as a reminder, Q&A is a little bit easier. Caitlin, one that just came in, is there a cap as to how many people are permitted in each peer learning group? What are our expectations around size?
Yes, that's a great question. So again, this will vary by your network, but likely it will be between 10 and 30 participants for each track. So it'll vary based on your network and how many interested people and what they feel is the best group size, but we will kind of cap it around there to make sure the conversation is manageable.
Yes, and this will be at the discretion also of the local network. Some may feel comfortable with larger groups, some prefer smaller, so it might end up looking a little different depending on the country. With that in mind, we've gotten a couple of questions, one on if other local networks can participate in one another's peer learning groups, and also if non-business can participate. I think local networks we can see, but of course, what I wanted to say is that the primary audience for these peer learning groups is our business community, and someone asked also if there will be a confidentiality agreement signed or an NDA in the signups. So just to emphasize this, there are in some networks, they may be taking on non-business participants, but our primary expectation is that this will be for our business participants, and local networks we can discuss internally if there's sort of exchanges that we can do. But again, that could be a little bit different. Susan asked a really good question. Can one participate retrospectively by way of a webinar recording? Our recommendation is that these, for that point of confidentiality, comfort, being able to speak openly, sort of a feeling of, openness within the groups, our very strong recommendation is that these will not be recorded. So it is, I think, as you're signing up, we have that expectation that if you're not able to join live, you still, of course, would be able to have access to the session materials, the resources, and things like that. But really, you should be signing up to peer learning groups if you are excited for that live interaction moment, because we do not anticipate doing recording. I think we've talked some of these through the timelines. I'm just looking through. So let's emphasize this one again. I think this is a great one from Natalia. What to expect from the sessions. Members should prepare to share or discuss any specific information. What kind of information or pre-session materials will be provided? Caitlin, how would you answer that one?
Yes, so we will share a pre-session, a quick pre-read before the session with some resources to review, to kind of standard set what the conversation will be about. And there will also be some reflection questions there. So yes, you should be prepared to share, maybe what your company is currently working on a topic. If anything, have they done, studies, research that you feel you want to share, and how far you've gotten in that work. And you are also welcome to share, any challenges that have come up on this, or ideas you have for steps you want to be taking in the future, asking other companies if they've done similar, what's worked for them, what hasn't. So it would be great if you can come prepared to discuss those kind of things to really make the conversation powerful.
I love another question that's come in, Caitlin, is if someone as an individual is just sort of interested in learning about sustainability, are they able to join a peer learning group? Is it the right opportunity for them?
I would say not at this time. The idea is that should really be based in your company's work and being able to make that change throughout your company's business operations. But if you are part of the Global Compact, we do have plenty of learning opportunities for individuals who are interested, and some of our academy courses are open to the public as well. So from the Global Compact perspective, still lots of resources for you, just maybe not this specific offering.
Exactly. And just to emphasize that point, we really hope that the peer learning groups are a place for practitioners who are, grappling with these challenges, for example, on gender equality on a daily basis. So where your work portfolio requires you to confront some of these issues and make those decisions. If you are just interested in learning more about gender equality as a topic, as Caitlin said, the Academy, for example, offers a number of really robust learning opportunities to help you become more aware and acclimatized to those topics. But we really are focusing on the day-to-day practitioners who are grappling with these topics. And maybe one thing just to emphasize is that we are the peer learning groups are an offering for current Global Compact participants in almost every case. As we've said, some local networks may make an exception, but that's not the baseline. So if you are considering joining the Global Compact, or if you are if you are currently a member that's not in good standing or non-communicating, you can reach out to your local network. I saw, for example, a question about Pakistan or something similar. Your local network is very well positioned in that case to help you either join or to submit your COP or do whatever is necessary to once again become active. Marco, great question. Should we apply in our local network or in the Global Compact? What you will see very clearly on the website, we have a global sign-up form. Some local networks are doing local sign-up, but that is clearly indicated with a link out to their sign-up forms. So if you go to that website, which we can share the link in again through the chat, you should clearly be able to see if it's the global sign up or the local network sign up. Another thing you would see is that in our global sign up, if that local network is not listed, it would be a good sign that they're doing local network sign up. And if you have any questions, we also have an email address that you can direct questions to. How do participants troubleshoot the participant ID error on the form? Since some companies are entering their participant ID, it is not allowing them to move forward due to an invalid number. In my experience, that's an issue with spaces because it should be accepting any the form should accept any alphanumeric response. It's not connected into the Global Compact database, for example. So if you continue to encounter difficulties, please reach out to us, Caitlin. Maybe if you can share in the email address on the chat. That would be great. So if you continue to have troubles, let us know so we can respond. Caitlin just put that in. Thank you. So Caitlin, are any other questions? I'm looking through them. A couple are going to be coming. One that's coming up is if the order of the sessions will be the same as was presented here. For example, if mitigation will be first for the climate track. Again, that's in most cases, that's what we would expect. That's how we're sort of also doing our internal training and releasing the materials. So very likely it will follow that. If for some reason there's a local, I can think of like one or two examples where there's a local event or something similar that's closer to a different theme where they may switch it, but in most cases it's aligned with the order that's coming. Caitlin, a question here, can multiple representatives from your company join a peer learning group?
Yes, so we recommend up to 2 representatives from your company joining each of the peer learning groups.
That is also a limit, which is a question we just got in most networks. That's going to be the limit, partially also from the standpoint of managing a community, right? If you have if we expand it out too much, it becomes harder to know one another, speak freely. So we really want to try to keep the groups at such a size where you get to know one another, feel comfortable sharing, and really understanding the challenges that one another is facing. We recommend 2 also because it's something we've seen is that it's great to have a teammate in your company if available. We know, for example, in some SMEs that may not be possible based on size, but it's really helpful to have a peer to help navigate these challenges together. Another that I'm seeing is about the action plans and any deliverables that are coming out of these. For example, we talked about the one on SMEs, and then also asking if there's a deliverable for labor and human rights. I will answer the SME one, Caitlin, if you want to take a look at the question coming in on labor and human rights. For the SME peer learning group, that is something that we'll be discussing in more detail in that peer learning group. But what we have developed is a very short sort of 3, 6, 9 month plan for what your next steps are, or 30, 60, 90 model, also common way of looking at it potentially. So that's what we'll talk about, is really as you've gone through those 4 key areas of environment, human rights, labor rights, and anti-corruption, hopefully identifying what are the immediate steps that you can take action on to advance your company's sustainability versus what are longer term projects to put into flight, and then creating sort of a plan for how you tackle those. What's the right order? Where do you prioritize? So that as you leave that SME peer learning group, it's really clear what the potential next steps are.
Yes, and I would say similarly for labor and human rights, there aren't going to be, a strict deliverable of something that you have to complete and turn in. We will have some surveys to complete, but it will be similarly to what Lena described on gender equality. There will be questions to reflect on during each session and some takeaways to take back at the end of the session of next steps that you can implement in your company or look into in your company. So that will be the model more than there is a set deliverable that you must complete to finish the program.
So I'm seeing a question, so they're coming in, so I can look at it and then I lose it. One that I saw, if a local network is not listed, for example, the UK, it likely means that they are not participating in this first year of these global peer learning groups. A network like the UK has a lot of, they've been doing similar types of work for quite some time on their own. So always, if you're interested in looking at a network like the UK's, their website will have more details on their peer learning opportunities. So always good to check there.
Yes, I think you just touched on it, Caitlin, but I think there's a question here about the different topics. So yes, the topics might vary based on your local context. The networks might adapt them to make the most sense for you. So the information that you see on their website is the most accurate.
Another coming in, if you are a nonprofit, are you a business or a non-business participant? For the Global Compact, in almost every case, a nonprofit is listed as a non-business participant. Again, it could be that the local network, that you've engaged with the local network in a different way. So I don't want to put a blanket statement on it, but the local network will be better positioned to say whether you're qualifying. Great question from Ashley. SME does stand for small to medium sized enterprise. So if you self-identify as an SME, there's many different definitions that we could be going by, but if that resonates with you, you will likely find value in that peer learning group. We can send in the link to the UK Global Compact Network site. It is defined. Is there guidance on who should participate? Yes, we have. You'll see that in the slides that we had, but what we recommend, they largely, again, is the practitioner and someone who's making decisions. It's really hard. Every company looks a little bit different, but if you are someone, again, who is sort of a decision maker on that theme for your company, you are likely the right person. So however you self-identify that, in some companies it's a director, at others it's a manager or senior manager. other places, it's going to be the chief sustainability officer. We see such a wide range so that it's hard to say specifically, but if you are self-identifying as the person who is making decisions, it likely is for you. Fernando, one question on environment. Is there a practical component on what data to document or how to calculate carbon emissions in the peer learning group in particular?
So, we have been working with the SBTI, the Science Based Targets Initiative, but these are methodologies for businesses to work on setting their targets and their plans for emission reductions. So in regards to specific data, then, companies need to work with the methodologies to go collecting their internal data and work on this. So I mean, it would depend on each company and there's sort of at what stage are they? Have they started working on this, or have they set up a science-based target? But part of the discussion would certainly be around that, the difficulties in getting this data.
I think that's exactly, that would be my assumption, is that the discussions in a peer learning group are more around sort of those challenges of how you find it, how you navigate doing that work, rather than the specific technical processes that you're undertaking as you're collecting the data and building out those processes. For that, we have a lot of other, we have, for example, a couple of e-learning tools on the Academy. We have the Climate Ambition Accelerator, guidance provided by the Science Based Target Initiative that are more specific on the exact processes around doing so, that technical side. And then the peer learning group offers a space to connect on the challenges that people are facing as they're implementing those processes. I would say. Oh, that's fair. All right. For global companies, this is a great one. For global companies, can people in different regions join in their respective region? In that case, the answer is yes. You can participate in multiple peer learning groups as a company, but again, you likely will have to be a member of that local network where you want to be participating, and that can look different depending on the local network. So, but that would typically be the case. You're welcome, though, if you have different decision makers or people, implementing your gender strategy in different regions of the world, certainly welcome to participate in multiple gender peer learning groups. We have done a pretty good job of clearing the question board. Yes, exactly. So the China network is doing a different set of programming this year that may indeed be relevant, and that's the case. We say here for China, but it's the case for any network. They likely have different offerings available to you, and then we, through our global programming, I think we would say also stay tuned for more opportunities upcoming, connected to peer learning and the exchange of ideas at a regional level throughout this year and into next year, outside of the context just of the peer learning groups. We're going to keep experimenting and trying to find new ways to bring this offering to as wide of an audience as possible. So thank you all so much for your questions. We have really, really appreciated your time and thoughtfulness. Caitlin has shared into the chat the email address as well as the website, which has more links to local networks, who's running it. So big thank you for joining us, for your curiosity and interest in this type of programming. We look forward to bringing this to life. Thank you to Fernando and Lena and Caitlin. And we look forward to your participation. Thank you all so much.